Welcome back to your Bestie in Freight podcast, where we talk all about things tracking, logistics, and real challenges that come with this industry. Today we have a very special guest, someone who is truly changing the game when it comes to driver health and wellness. Dr. Mark Manera is a founder of Shift, a company that helps tracking and warehousing companies reduce healthcare costs, prevent chronic diseases, and improve driver well-being. As someone with a Doctor of Physical Therapy degree, he has made it his mission to ensure truck drivers can stay healthy while still doing what they love. And I have to say, as a former truck driver myself, I would have loved to have a program like this back in the day. The long hours, lack of movement, and bad food options made it hard to stay healthy on the road. So today we are diving deep into how drivers can take care of themselves, what small lifestyle changes can make a big difference, and how off-shift is helping the industry. So let's start with your journey. And Mark, thank you so much for joining. I'm very happy to have you as my guest. So please tell us what inspired you to focus on health and wellness for especially truck drivers, because as a physician, you can just go and practice your, degree on somewhere else, but you choose to go into trucking industry. So what is motivation behind it?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I feel like we've known each other for a couple of years, and I was excited to catch up and everything. But sure. I got into the trucking industry in a unique way. I didn't actually know anyone in transportation, didn't have any family or friends that were, lifetime truckers or in the industry at all. And I come from a healthcare background. And so I have a doctorate degree in physical therapy. 4.5, 5 years ago, I was working in a PT clinic here in St. Louis, and walked in a bunch of truck drivers. And it was, the first time I have ever gotten to know some drivers on a personal level. And it was also first time seeing what 20, 30 years behind the wheel can do to someone's health. And it just threw me down this rabbit hole of the trucking industry. I'm a little bit of a research nerd, and so digging into some of the statistics, and especially looking at the statistics from an outsider perspective, especially coming from healthcare, I was really shocked at what I saw of highest rates of obesity and diabetes among any other occupation. And the scariest thing, and it still shocks me every time I say it, is the fact that truck drivers die 16 years earlier than the average American. And someone can go get their CDL, become a driver, and all of a sudden 16 years gets chopped off the back end and their life expectancy is 61 years old. That's messed up. It's just no one's career should define their health. And I just truly deep down in my core believe that. And, I think as I've gotten deeper and deeper into the industry, unfortunately, because of the specific lifestyle and barriers that drivers face, and honestly the lack of solutions that help them combat those lifestyle barriers, that's exactly what's been happening. And I'm just on a mission to change those statistics. I'm on a mission to help the industry. And, for me, I really think we have this unique alignment where if drivers are healthier, they live healthier, happier, higher quality of life. And then also their company and insurance companies win as well, because they're less risk, they're less cost, and they're sitting behind the wheel, showing up physically, mentally prepared to move more freight and not be a nuisance on the company or their managers, or filing claims on the insurance side of things.
Wow. I love that. Thank you so much for, having it in your mind, because I think I would love, as I mentioned, I would have loved if I knew this, I had this type of program when I was driving back in 2016, because I only drove 9 months, Mark, and I really noticed a difference. First of all, you gain weight, no matter if you, eat healthy, because I used to eat healthy, but still, you're sitting, you gain weight, and my legs were getting swollen, so I had to wear compression socks all the time. And of course, you cannot all the time move, because we were driving reefer, and we had late appointments, early pickups, and all your schedule is just out of mess, and it is so hard, to stay on shape. But if you have something off shift, to keep you accountable and to tell you what you have to do, that I think that would have been really helpful. So That's
Well,
great.
I agree. And, from the first 3 years in the industry, I call it like getting my MBA in trucking. I did basically everything I possibly could outside of going to my CDL. I did
I saw
ride
you like
alongs.
making like videos in front
Oh
of
yeah,
truck.
I
Yes.
was meeting drivers at truck stops that I met on Facebook groups and like buying them lunch and then using their truck to do workout videos and stuff, and like I really got deep into just the lifestyle and understanding, the good, the bad, the ugly of it. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that really stuck out is what you brought up earlier, where it's like the time aspect. Time is
Yeah.
the biggest barrier that drivers face, and something that especially for the over the road drivers, but I'm sure it happens even people who are home on a more recurring basis, is it's you get to a customer and maybe you are going to get loaded in an hour, but it turns into 8 hours, and then all of a sudden your shift's completely, you want to maximize your hours, so you're now driving, instead of at 6 a.m., you're driving at 6 p.m., and it's like all over the place. And then you kind of feel like you're stuck in this survival mode and you just cannot catch up until you end up at either, on your reset, or you get home. And then by the time you are caught up, you're back on the road again. And it's just like this vicious cycle that's so challenging for drivers to, physically and mentally, hurdle over.
Yes, it is. Well, trucking industry, as I said, really does need a solution like this. So drivers, of course, are backbone of America, yet their health often gets put on the back burner. And you have worked with so many drivers. What are some of the biggest health challenges, like other than you mentioned, like life expectancy, and like what are the challenges? I know like diabetes is a big one, being overweight. What else?
I think the biggest part, I think you can break it down into a couple different areas, but what I focus on is the physical health side of things. And I think physical health goes hand in hand with the mental health as well. But on the
Yes.
physical health side of things, I really see the, North Star, not North Star, the top first most important thing is obesity. About
Yes.
70% of over the road truck drivers are obese, according to the CDC. And the trickle down of obesity is diabetes, is heart disease, is musculoskeletal injuries, is like all of these different things that are contributors to high healthcare costs, are contributors to more work comp injuries and short-term, long-term disabilities, and then also productivity, sick days, and just moving max as much freight as they can, so they can earn as much money as they want, and then also the company drives revenue from moving freight as well. And so for us, we are very focused around helping drivers prevent and manage obesity related chronic diseases, which boils down to helping drivers make the lifestyle changes necessary to lose weight out on the road, because
Okay.
there is years and years of research and data showing just the impact that weight loss, or a certain percentage of your body weight that you lose, and the reduction in healthcare costs, the reductions in work comp, the reductions in all of these different areas.
Yeah. Well, what are the top three things that drivers can start doing today to improve their health on the road?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest three things, and these are pretty like high categories, but I would really focus on physical activity, sleep, and nutrition. And so from a physical activity standpoint, I don't think there's any like silver bullet, this like special workout that you got to do. At the end of the day, it's just find ways that you get movement,
Movement.
right? That
Yes.
could be, doing some stuff in the back of your cab. Our most popular programs for drivers are actually in the back of their truck, doing
Yes.
stretching routines, circuit training, all these different types of things. And you can turn your truck into a gym. And a lot of the times that's
Yes.
way easier than trying to find a gym that you can park at and spend an hour there and then figure out truck parking afterwards. Is, do it, spend 10 minutes moving, if it's outside or in the back of your truck when you're at a customer's, or you're at the truck stop at night, instead of scrolling on TikTok for, an extra 10 minutes.
Yes.
And, I think the biggest thing on physical activity is it's not what activity you're doing. It's just finding something that you enjoy and
That's
doing it on a consistent basis. So if you
Yes.
like walking, no one's ever gone out for a 10-minute walk and come back mad that they did that, right? It's
I
so good on
agree.
just getting some fresh air, you're breathing, you feel good, and
Yeah.
then also your heart's pumping a little bit. But you can also do push-ups, body weight stuff. My favorite thing is drivers having a resistance band in the back of their truck, because it's
I
super
had
light.
it. Yes, I
Yes,
had it.
exactly. Yeah, so it's super lightweight. You can store it up, and then if you slam on your brake and you've got a 20-pound dumbbell in the back of your truck, all of a sudden it's flying through the air. Well, with the resistance band, it doesn't do that.
Yes.
So that's why I focus on that end. And then on the nutrition side of things, I think people way overcomplicate it at times, and I think you end up going on social media scrolling for 5 minutes, and there's like 10 different diets that you're supposed to be doing, and it's like they all contradict each other. You have no clue what you're supposed to do. And at the end of the day, all of us are like, no one's listening to this podcast and not smart. Like everyone listening to this is very intelligent, and we all know we should be eating less Twinkies and more fruits and vegetables. We know what foods we should be eating. And I think at the end of the day, it's finding the lowest hanging fruit of, if it's drinking less sugar and soda, if it's eating more fruits and vegetables, if it's swapping out the white bread for whole grain options, and even a big aspect is just eating more protein throughout the day. That's something that I've found a lot of drivers either are skipping breakfast, or they just end up looking at their day and they might have got a burger at dinner, but that's about all the protein they've ate, because they're just like snacking from the passenger seat the bag of Doritos, right? Those are, I would just say, focus on the small things. And I seriously, like, every day shock people how impactful small changes done on a consistent basis can have. And just find the starting point. You don't have to run a marathon. You just have to take one step in the right direction. Just keep taking that step, and then the momentum will build.
I so agree. And I had this resistant band that I would just get out in the mornings, and we'll do some stretching, this exercise, and I will walk in the truck stop and rest areas. I love the rest areas because they are pretty,
Yes.
I would walk there because it is like forest. Most of the time they are very beautiful and in a good location. But I agree, I feel like drivers struggle more with caffeine, like drinking that sugary liquids, which I never did, but I know that like most of them, they just drink Coke, that other drink that keeps them awake, Red Bull, yes.
Red Bull,
Like,
Monsters, all.
yes,
And you know what? Again, it's not like you don't have to hate yourself to live a healthy life. We're not saying get rid of everything. You don't have to go to your pantry, throw everything away. But what we can do is, like, a really easy start is, even if it's not as good as just drinking straight water, is saying, I'm going to drink, instead of my 3 Cokes or Pepsis a day, I'm going to drink.
do one, for example.
I'm going to do one, or I'm going to drink Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi, or find a 0-calorie option. And it's a step in the right direction, right? And I think that's really the mindset I would have for drivers, and what we found successful working with tons of drivers at different companies.
Yeah, well, I really love it, and sometimes we just need that, like, push, that person that, like, they will say, hey, you have to do it, and we just need to just be that, accountable with someone. And I think that's what Oshiv does, so it is truly amazing.
Well, I appreciate that. I completely agree. I think that one aspect, when you talk to a lot of drivers, and this is outside of drivers, this is just our culture in general, and people, is most people don't have anyone in their corner for health.
Yes.
They have maybe a spouse or a friend who pushes them, but that only can go a certain distance, right? We want someone who's maybe not, in our life outside, personally in our life, but maybe just there from a health perspective, and is taking the time to get to know you. For us, we only hire coaches who understand the trucking industry and the lifestyle. And so that really helps build the relationship right away, because drivers are like, this is not some just like Hollywood trainer who's never seen a semi-truck before in their life. It's someone who actually gets trucking, and that gets drivers to open up. And then when they call or they get a text from their coach, they're like, okay, Mark's telling me I got to do this. I'm going to do this.
Yes, that's truly amazing, because it doesn't just tell drivers what to do. It actually gives them a system that works around their lifestyle. And I remember when I just started, that lady motivated me to become a truck driver, because they were my next door neighbor when I moved to America. In Florida, they were a couple who were a team truck driver with US Express, I think. And this lady, she was big, like she was over 300 pounds, and she lost like over 150 pounds, like
Oh
during
my
these
gosh,
two,
that's
3 years.
amazing.
Yes, she would like do lifestyle changes, and I saw how it can really affect you. But also, I saw how you can do it, how you can change it, just like ordering right foods and, staying active on the road. That's amazing. So let's talk about benefits of tracking companies, because I would love if more tracking companies care about truck drivers in a health wise. Because when I was working with Hertzbach, they are a great company. They had two locations with gym. One was in Atlanta, one I think is in Dubuque, Iowa. But we don't go every day Georgia or Dubuque. As you said, you cannot like just park every day or like every 2-3 days to go to the gym, right? So like what would you like say tracking companies, bigger tracking companies who are like having more than 100 drivers, and how they can implement off shift, and how they can make drivers' life and health better, so they can also benefit, with the program.
Well, yeah, so throughout that 3 years when I got into the industry and I was just like learning, working with dozens of trucking companies, a bunch of insurance companies, like some insurance companies on both the health
Yes.
and employee benefit side of things, but then also on the commercial insurance and like the people who are auto liability, and just spending hundreds of hours with drivers. Like throughout that process, one of the things I saw was number one, the impact that unhealthy drivers have on a company, from
Yes.
healthcare costs, from work comp injuries, from even turnover and productivity and sick days. And then when I was working hand in hand with different VPs of HR and benefit providers at these different trucking companies, what I started to recognize, and I was seeing from working with these companies, was that all of the health benefits that trucking companies have available to offer their drivers, they're all industry agnostic. And what that really means is they're built for someone who works in a cubicle and then handed to a driver as an afterthought. And they don't speak their language, they don't understand the culture in the industry, they don't fit the lifestyle, and at the end of the day, the drivers just don't resonate with them. And when
No.
someone doesn't resonate with something, they don't use it. And then what I was seeing was there was this huge engagement problem where most of these benefits were just collecting more dust throughout the year than actual usage.
Yes.
And I saw that as a huge problem, because if no one's using it, we're not changing any of the statistics, no one's getting healthier. And then also these companies, especially the larger ones who are holding risk on the healthcare cost side of things, on the work comp side of things, and then also just in general other productivity, just impacts on health. They weren't getting any value out of something that such a trivial percentage of people are using. So the average health benefit that in the trucking industry I'm seeing is like less than 1% of employees signing up and participating. And so
No.
I started off shift with the focus of like, how do we spearhead that engagement problem? Because if we can get a higher percentage of people to join and stay engaged in the program, the
Yes.
trickle of down of that for a company is going to be way more valuable than maybe an industry agnostic solution that kind of sells the same program to the trucking company as the law firm down the street. And
Yes.
so for us, what we do is we really focus on trucking companies who are self-insured on the health insurance side of things, or have some type of captive group or level funding where they hold the risk of, if Mark ends up in the ER and I get a bill, the ER hospital sends a bill to my insurance, the company is paying that out, right? Because
Yes.
that's where we can really have an impact on helping them lose weight and manage those obesity related chronic diseases, and have
Yes.
a really strong direct one-to-one ROI for the trucking companies. And
Yes.
so for that's kind of the aspect that we focused on is around healthcare costs. But then the trickle down of it is, if someone loses weight, they reduce the likelihood of work comp injuries. They really reduce the likelihood of a very expensive work comp injury that's like
Yes.
very the high cost claims. And then also they're less likely to fail a DOT physical and turnover.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
less likely to have sick days where the basically truck utilization goes down, so that the revenue per driver's impacted at the company. And then the final aspect is just looking at, you look at the average truck driver. It's getting older and older every single year. And
Yes.
so it's like, how do we create a benefit that the safety team can use to reduce risk on that end, to healthier, happier, safer drivers. But then also we reduce the likelihood that a 65, 70-year-old driver who's in our fleet is retiring and leaving our company or turning over because of a health issue versus because they want to retire and enjoy life after trucking.
Yes.
And then on top of that, you've got this whole problem of getting the next generation into the industry as well, where the
That's
people in their
problem.
20s don't want to become truck drivers. And if they do, I can tell you as someone who is in this generation is they want to work for a company that cares about physical and mental health, that cares about their life outside of trucking, that cares about their quality of life. And these trucking companies strategically, from like an enterprise top level executive risk management perspective, I think it's just absurd if they're not looking at more driver industry specific solutions that can encompass not only the health plan, but also impact all of these other trickle down areas where, health is being impacted on their bottom line.
Yeah. Well, if I had the power, honestly, I would just delete all these health insurance benefits and I will get for my drivers off shift instead of, because that health
We don't need to delete them all.
Yes,
maybe just add off shift into it.
I know, like maybe be like, drug drivers advocate in some, I don't know, political party. I don't know what I should do, but like, I remember my husband, now ex-husband, he actually got 3 times to emergency room because he had very high blood pressure, as you said, like he was always worrying to pass his DOT medical because his blood pressure was very high. Also, the insurance, right, that the company is providing. Like, let's say if you get stuck in a state that your insurance doesn't accept it, like you end up paying it, like because there is no as far as I know, they say there is, but when the situation happens, they don't cover it when it is out of state most of the time. So.
Well, if I could explain the complexity of the health insurance industry, we'd be here all day, and people would probably fall asleep as well. But I'll give you like a really great example that's like off of a story of actually some of my best friends who are drivers at this moment. So like I said, I became really close with some drivers the first couple of years, and like I've stayed in the relationship with them as time goes on. And there's a girl, her name's Blake, that I became really good friends with, and she just like, it was someone that like she was like, hey, call me anytime, I'll talk to you, I'll give you any advice. And I became really good friends with her, and then also her fiance, his name's George, and they team drove together. And last year they got married in January. Actually, my wife and I were 2 of 30 people at their wedding. So if that tells you how like we were really close, and like we're still really close. But about 3 weeks before their wedding, I got a call from Blake, and she said, hey, George is in the hospital. He just had a heart attack. Wow. And they were driving down the road. They were making their final stop in California before heading back to St. Louis for their wedding, to get ready for their wedding. And they were going down the highway, 65 miles per hour, full load. And George is driving, and he looks over at his fiance 2 weeks before their wedding and says, look, something's wrong. Like, I need to pull over and get off. And like, I'm glad he did. They rushed to the ER. He ended up getting hospitalized. He had like a 97% blockage in one of his arteries going to his heart. And the doctor's like, I'm really glad that you pulled over and, came to the hospital, because that could have turned out really bad. And so he had surgery the next day. He recovered. He actually was able to make it to his wedding and everything on time. But but there's so many drivers out there who are on that path.
Yes.
Or don't pull over or don't catch it early, and it ends up, as a news article of this driver didn't wake up at a Love's truck stop, or ends up in a lawsuit because a driver had a heart attack or a stroke when behind the wheel and got into an accident. And so there's so many areas where if we can just get ahead of it and we can help these drivers and give them something that they can do and they feel like it's possible out on the road because it's built for their life out on the road. Like, I truly think we can change millions of drivers' lives, and also in the meantime reduce and save billions of dollars in this industry from health related costs.
Yeah. Like I think that especially bigger trucking companies, they need this program. First of all, it is gonna lower healthcare cost and fewer work comp claims, right? And better driver retention, because I know like driver retention is real. If you don't feel good, you just quit. You don't care. You're not healthy. You don't care if the load needs to be picked up or unloaded, whatever it is. You don't care because I mean you cannot drive, and sometimes you are forced to drive, but at the same time you are a human and you have a right to live a healthy lifestyle. You're already sacrificing a lot away from family, not having like regular life, but now you just sacrificing your life. And as you say, you look older. That part I didn't notice on me because I only drove 1 year, but I got overweight like 8 pounds, and my legs were swollen like horribly. So I cannot do this like any longer. I'm out.
Well, I think the other aspect, and to that point on the retention side of things is, I
Yes.
think companies, especially the larger companies where, they might have over 100% turnover year over year. They might have like huge turnover in that first 3 months where just drivers are coming in
Yes.
and they're excited about the signing bonus, and then they're
Yes.
out because of X, Y, and Z. And I think part of that is thinking about how do you change or create a differentiated driver experience at your company. And I think that can start by your onboarding and going through
Yes.
training, and your potentially your recruiters not lying to drivers and saying promising the world, and then they show up and they're like, this is not anything that talks about. But I think
Yes.
another aspect to it is looking at like, how do you give employee benefits that other companies are not offering, and
Yes.
that speak to the people who are coming in. And I'm not saying you're going to go from 100% turnover to 10% turnover by offering this benefit, but you are going to it's like
Yes.
stacking up wins and
Yes.
building that relationship with drivers. And if they're engaged in a program where they're like, I don't feel like I get this type of health program, and I know my health is something I'm really worried about, that is something that's building the relationship and making it stronger with your drivers, and
Yes.
is increasing the
Knowing that you
likelihood they stay.
care. I think
Exactly.
if like in a long run, it will reduce that retention, like even
Yeah.
10-20% in a long run, not in 1 year, but it will. So that's amazing. So Mark, tell me, so I know like maybe a lot of trucking companies or drivers might want to get healthy, but they don't know what to do and how to start. So what would you say, like listening to us, what is the way to get started? What are the first steps with Offshift?
Yeah, so I mean, for a company, I would say reach out to me. You can go to offshift.ai is our website, or if you find me on LinkedIn, Dr. Mark Manera, and would love to have a conversation about that and find a way we can be a part of your health plan. If you're a driver and you're listening to this and you're like, my company should offer this, hey, reach out to me. Let's work together, and we'll
Yes.
find the right person at your company, and let's get it involved. Or if you're just on a journey on yourself and you're like, hey, I want to do this on my own. My company doesn't offer this, or maybe I'm an owner operator, or I work for a
Yes.
small fleet that doesn't really offer benefits. I think the biggest thing is like taking a step back and looking at your current day-to-day life, and just looking at it from not like a judgmental standpoint, not from an rosy glasses, I have optimistic standpoint, but just like on the plane, on the ground, writing it out. What does my day look like? And through that process, what I've seen is most people can find low-hanging fruit things that if
Yes.
they make these changes, or they add or substitute these things, it doesn't actually change their life at all. But
Yes.
it's a step in the right direction, and done consistently, it can have a really big impact. So, few examples. Going into a truck stop, instead of going down row 2 and grabbing a Snickers bar, why don't you go down row 3 and grab the protein bar? Instead of
Yes.
grabbing the Coke, grab the Coke Zero. Instead
Yeah.
of, sitting there when you park at night and scrolling on Facebook or TikTok for 10 minutes, get outside, go for a walk, or get up in your bunk, do some stretching or body weight exercises, for 5 to 10 minutes.
Yes.
And it's those small things that build like this momentum. It's like the snowball going down the hill. And
Yes.
what happens is, anytime someone does that, it's like you start exercising, all of a sudden you start eating healthier, right? You start
Yes.
caring about your health in other areas of your life become healthier as well. And I
That's
think
true.
most people who've gone down that journey see that as well. And the hardest part is to just get started
Yes,
and continue to do it and push through, honestly, those first couple of low points, because there's
yes,
never a straight up and to the right. It's always like this roller coaster, and you just
yes,
need to not let those down points get in the way of your life.
yes,
And these changes that you make, think about it in a way of, I am not trying to flip my whole lifestyle upside down, change everything in one day. I'm going to make one change, and ask yourself, this change I'm making, could I see myself doing it in 3 years? And if the answer
yes,
is, yeah, I can still see myself doing this in 3 years, then you're probably on the right path, because this whole game of health is not, I'm doing this 30-day sprint, then I'm back to normal, and then I'll do another 30-day sprint back to normal. It's how do you make the lifestyle changes that you can keep doing for the rest of your life, because that's
yes.
how you actually take advantage of a healthy, happier lifestyle.
Yes, I agree. Can I add from a former truck driver standpoint
Yes.
few tips? What I used to do, I would just in the morning as a truck driver, I would say like you have to have breakfast, you cannot skip it because you don't know how the day will go, and like having breakfast it already like good start. And what I would
Yep.
just do, boil water, add to oatmeal, let it stay, and just add apple, raisins or whatever, honey, and like that was my breakfast, and then I'm happy. So they already started good. And then having water next to me, just drinking water with lemon or whatever fruit, just like small changes, as you said. I also had this gas I bought from Walmart, and when sometimes we had a reset or something, I would grill like a fish, I will grill
Oh,
meat, I was
nice.
just doing barbecue picnic situation, it is fun. And
Party at your truck. I love it.
yes,
That's awesome.
no, I would just take it out, when we
Yeah.
had a reset, I would just do barbecue or whatever. And also, I used to go to these Slavic Russian stores. They have like buffets and they are healthy. So I would just buy a lot of stuff. I mean, as much as I can fit in my refrigerator, and then I will just have like 2 days or 3 days food. That was also very helpful, like healthy food. Because that, I think the difficult part also is that refrigerator is very small. Like you cannot fit a lot of stuff. It is
Well,
kind of making hard.
yeah, and most Walmarts, you can pull a semi truck in. You might not be able to park there
Yes,
overnight, but you can
you
park
can
there,
pass
go
it.
go do your grocery shopping, and then there's a ton of healthy options that you don't
Yes,
need to be refrigerated, right?
yes,
That
yes.
you can, oatmeal is a great example, but like there's a ton of things that
Yes, even
you can just
fruits,
cut fruit,
fruits,
exactly.
vegetables. Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was doing, and it was very helpful. Well, thank you so much, Mark. This has been such a valuable conversation, and I truly believe what you're doing is a great mission, and I think you are making a huge impact on the tracking industry. And for all of the tracking companies, I want you to reach out to Mark and get signed up with a program that will help with driver retention, with work compensation and health insurance claims, and also overall have a good culture in your company. And if you are an individual driver or owner operator, you can also reach out to Mark and sign up separately if your company is not offering it. And I know that our listeners are going to walk away with some real actionable steps they can take to be healthier on the road. And I'm, grateful that you agreed to join. Thank you so much, Mark, and I will continue supporting your journey.
Ah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark.